February 24th, on Thursday morning, maniacal president of my country, Russia, attacked Ukraine, and in this act of madness sealed its fate, the fate of my homeland, for many, many years to come. Of course, I'm against this conflict, as any person with at least half of a working brain is. It's crazy that I have to even specify something so obvious, because, as it turns out, majority of my compatriots support this invasion. On that day I was in the middle of making a game diary for Griftlands, but as the war started, everything was put on hold for over 2 weeks. Because all my free time was spent on gathering information, watching news and footage of shellings, battles, and horrid conditions of people my country is trying to occupy. Now, because my life's soon going to change drastically and I won't have access to my PC or old footage, I decided to finish what I've started and close this chapter, so to speak. There's not going to be a lot of humor or upbeat notes. I scrapped everything I planned to say before the war and started all over. Now it seems just inappropriate, and I'm simply not in the mood right now. So, Griftlands, it came out in 2021, developed by Canadian company Clay Entertainment. Clay remains to be one of my favorite game developers, despite their recent flirting with Epic Games exclusivity and, well, selling out to China. Those are most likely signs of their unfortunate sunset or the end of their golden age, but it remains to be seen. Griftlands is a difficult, uncompromising single-player card game, or what I call among friends as spicy. For me, difficulty was just right. I haven't died in all 3 campaigns, but I had a lot of close calls and stressful situations. But so much more satisfying was to overcome them. They give you a choice to pick difficulty in the beginning, and I want to clear this out because it's confusing and picking the wrong one can ruin the first impression. Introduction and Common Tongue means easy, it's not a tutorial, you'll get the same tutorial in both difficulties, and level 1 means normal. If you are older than 9 years, you can forget about the first one. Normal is the way every player should experience it. But confusion doesn't stop here, as any card game in first few hours, it requires from you to cram as much rules in your head as possible, which is fine. There are 2 main games with its own set of cards and rules, negotiation and battle. I wasn't very lucky starting with negotiation, because if battle terminology is pretty intuitive, health is health, defense is shield over your health, bleed is damage over time. In negotiation, resolve is health, composure is defense, arguments are most of the things that can be damaged, and so on and so forth. And before I even was sure which number on the card meant damage, I had to deal with such things as inception, intimidation, dominance, influence, planted evidence, and many other completely new concepts. So the beginning was pretty overwhelming. Now, understanding how it all works, it looks fairly simple to me, but I remember my struggle for first few hours all too well. On the other hand, dropping straight into the fray with consequences and permanent death, as opposed to long, boring tutorials with no stakes, is something that I advocate for and enjoy. Also, they've created very convenient interface. Any information I needed was always there right at hand, be it short definition for terminology, description of buffs, perks or upgrades, even highlighted words in conversations, where you get extra information about the subjects. Compendium was another pleasant surprise, again very convenient in use, with its own search and all kinds of sorting and filtering tools. So I would say user interface was on the top level. It's something that other deck builders should envy and build upon. One thing though I wish was there to help to fight initial confusion would be mini icons next to keywords, what other games used like Gwent or Civilization to help with the readability. And Clay did use these in Rook's campaign, but only for his lucky coin. And I think it would have helped a lot, because the problem was not just in complexity of the game itself, but in ability to keep all of these rules in the head while trying to plan out your actions. A lot of the time I had to sit and reread and reconfirm what the cards can do exactly. It's not essential, not a big deal, but would speed up the process of learning by a lot. And you will be doing a lot of learning constantly because the flood of new cards and rules doesn't cease for over 100 hours. Gameplay wise, they did a solid job. It's fairly challenging, it's addictive, there are a lot of different builds you can discover and experiment with. My personal favorite was Sal's manipulation build, where the main goal was not to do damage, but to keep yourself protected, while Doubt, you initially saw, does the damage for you. I would say gameplay was fairly balanced for what it is. There are some bit overpowered things you can abuse, like Smith's self-regeneration called Moxie, or Jake's social boon, which gives you a discount, but realization comes way later with more experience and doesn't really affect first campaigns. The best part though of Griftlands for me is not the card game itself, but what comes on top of that, and it's elements of choose your own adventure. There's a variety of events, some of them are random that happen along the way, some of them are in the main plot, and all of them make the game much more interesting. As a guy who went through the school of Don't Starve, I think I had a good advantage, because with Clay, difficulty oftentimes comes not from the battles, but from the trickery that comes beforehand. They do have this bag of tricks, they do like to test their players' wits, and always playfully trying to fool them around. A good highlight of that is when at the end of second day, when you are most likely tired and hurt, you chat with your lovely frog mom for a bit, then go to sleep thinking you're completely safe, everything is fine, and then you're faced with an assassin trying to kill you. It might be a little bit far-fetched, but I think this event is similar to Deer Clubs from Don't Starve. It comes in the toughest time for any unaware player, at night in the middle of winter, when new players probably already struggling and taking pride they survived that long. It strikes when they are most vulnerable, destroying everything they've built and relied upon. And here, with this assassin, doesn't matter if you are very clever or you can play cards like a god, if you went to bed with low resolve and health, thinking you will take a sleep and it will all recover, you will most likely die. Ironically, I survived because of my ignorance. I didn't know that sleeping healed me to full health, so I ate first. If I did know that, I would have saved money and would be very dead. And these dirty tricks happen all over in all kinds of forms. Your share comes out to 50 shields. He tries to fucking swindle me, I know this fucking dude. This is what I love. I love when the game treats you like an enemy, like a challenger, when it actually tries to beat you down. And it's never terribly unfair. Even before the unavoidable assassin ambush, there's a foreshadowing conversation. So as with other situations where you can read them through and make your own conclusions and predictions. Outcome of these situations often tie into money, and money is life in Griftlands. Economy works great, you have a lot of useful and expensive things to buy, but have very limited amount of coin. And this creates a constant need for money. If you are scrubbing by and counting every coin in the game, then this is a sign of a well-made economy. In Griftlands, you need money to heal, to restore resolve. You know that you will be fighting a tough opponent to the death at the end of the campaign, and you know you need all the help you can get. So money in this context is essential for survival. Now, why is that important? When there comes a choice between doing something morally positive or earning some extra coin, suddenly this situation has weight. For example, someone offers hero a bribe. In the game like Witcher 3, it doesn't matter. You have so much money and so little use for it. You will only take a bribe if you want to roleplay as a baddie or just for fun. When here it becomes a temptation, even for people who usually like to play as good guys. Being a hero in Griftlands with principles and high morals comes with sacrifices, when being a crook and slimy opportunist can be very profitable and easy if played right, which I believe mirrors life much better than a lot of other games do. And this is why it's important. This is how economy beautifully ties into storytelling and choices when done right. Now to the things I didn't like. I'm not a big fan of how the game looks. Characters themselves are drawn fine. That damned rook's smile will stay with me for a while. But when you put them next to the background, it looks very cheap. It's like the characters been drawn with one style and the scenery with another. And a lot of the times it's been noticeable that Clay chipped out on animation. You run to a safe distance and wait for the explosion. Boom. Nice. Black screen. I really wished to see anything similar to promotional footage. Instead we get everyone's favorite still images with voiceover. Another thing is how they handle deck building. You not only have to pay money to remove cards, the amount doubles every time you do it, and you can do it only once per day. So if you want to check a new card and then decide that you don't like it, it's going to be very costly to get rid of. This is a problem because it hinders experimentation. It's safer for people to stick with the cards they know are good rather than explore and potentially make themselves weaker in the current run. So I wish this part have been designed differently. And the last thing, in Rook's campaign it was strange to see a character I remembered from Sal's run. I waited for them to explain how they got here until I realized that the game is reusing the same character, pretending it's a different one. Every time you start a new game, it shuffles them around, aside of certain exceptions, and only those exceptions are the real characters. Everybody else are not important, because everything they say, another guy will say after a new shuffle. It doesn't reflect their nature. I think it would have worked better if they've been shuffled inside their campaigns, and only those who can reasonably show up at another location, like traveling merchants for example, can show up in other campaigns. And I understand that randomization makes every run a little bit fresher, but the cost of it makes majority of characters much less interesting. And that's all I have to say. I apologize for particularly bad quality of this video, because I'm in a rush right now. Griftlands is a pretty good card game. Thing is, I'm not that into them, and my highest playing for this genre is about 70 out of 100. Personally, I can't get too much into deck builders or be strongly immersed in them, but it doesn't mean other people feel the same way. It's certainly worth checking out. It took me 39 hours to complete, 222 hours total, and I'm giving Griftlands 75 out of 100. I've been trying to make a very low effort meme, but it didn't work out. Protégé head is fine, but here I couldn't find a good angle on Rook.